a certain area, or if you pay for someone else's passage to come there. So owning more land for moving somewhere specific, or yeah, that's kind of one way that they were able to get colonists to come to America, was saying, we'll give you 150 acres if you move to Massachusetts.
Is that what they did in Pennsylvania too?
Pennsylvania was an attraction because they were Quakers and were tolerant, and he did a good job recruiting. Yes, he did do some of that. 4, indentured servants is a person whose passage is paid if they will be a servant for a certain amount of time, usually about 7 years. Most of them never made it to be free. They would keep extending their stay because either they weren't being productive or they were not. There'd be different reasons, different excuses. So then they didn't have to be free. It is compared often to the first form of slavery because they just never were free. 5, delegate representation would be where your representative is actually from that specific area where they are representing.
So like Lincoln, he became, what's one called it for Illinois?
Talking about senator from Illinois. Senators weren't so much the problem. It's like your local House of Representative people, and especially with Parliament. Like the colonists' representation in Parliament were people who had never even been to the colonies. They wanted someone who had actually been to the colonies, were actually from their colony, like the colony of Virginia, representing them in Parliament. Britain believed more in number 6, virtual representation, the idea that Parliament, all the people in Parliament represent all of the British Empire. They speak for them all. Think back to world history and what all the British Empire included. Parliament was supposed to be able to speak for them all. Any questions about 1 through 6? Am I good? 7, antebellum. This is like the time period before a war. Usually in U.S. history refers before Civil War, like pre-war, antebellum. In our case, it's usually in reference to the Civil War. So post-bellum means after the war. In our case, it's usually after the Civil War.
Is it usually like a certain amount of years?
No. 9, status quo. Auntie? Number 9. The status quo is like returning to the way things were before. Just kind of going back to the way things were prior to whatever event, whatever situation. 10, reciprocity. Thank you. I was reviewing 6th period and I could not say the word then either. But it's a mutual exchange of advantages and privileges. The idea of being reciprocating, mutual exchange. Everyone's getting some sort of benefit, some sort of advantage, some sort of privilege. Advantages, privileges, benefits, something. Both parties are getting something out of it. 11, a tariff is a tax on imports, sometimes exports, but usually imports. 12, a customs duty is the same thing. Tax on imports, very rarely, but sometimes exports. 13, vertical integration is where you are merging with a company that's in a different level of manufacturing than yours. So you're going up or down, like the chain of command for making a good. So if a factory merges with a trucking company so then they can ship the goods on their trucks, it keeps the money all within the same company. Or if the grocery store owns an area where their produce is being farmed, different step. Same grocery store can own the trucking companies. Maybe they also own the bag making company, because then they keep all the money within the company. They're not just restricted to just what they make in the stores. A horizontal integration is merging with a company that's very similar to yours, like 2 airlines, 2 hamburger joints, 2 furniture making places. Do y'all understand the difference between the two?
Yes.
Yeah, like
Are
when
we
you
good?
combine
So what if one company manufactures the same thing but contracts others?
oh yeah, like when United Airlines combine with Continental.
That, if you're manufacturing the same thing, then that's a horizontal.
No matter what level? They're-
It would be the same level if they're both at manufacturing, if they're both making something.
Just like when Continental.
What do you mean, like, how much they like produce?
Like,
No.
different, difference in like when Continental combined with.
Your first level would be like your raw materials.
Oh, I see.
2 is like the manufacturing part. 3, shipping. And then 4 is the actual selling.
Just like when United
So it,
combined with Continental.
like HEB owns trucks. And then they also own the farms, like that's all vertical. Lovely. But if HEB merges with like Kroger, that's horizontal. Okay. 15, a freeman is a person not in slavery.
No.
Well, you know, some people don't. Usually, they have citizenship rights.
But these are like just this term is like limited to black people that were at one point in slavery,
Or like freed indentured servants. Or just free men. Right now, y'all are free men. You're not in slavery.
not yet.
Don't play with me.
What did you say?
That now.
Please speak of the word now.
Manumission, number 16, is the idea of being free from slavery. Like,
I do it.
like to free someone from slavery is to manumit them. Manumit them. These are just words that have popped up here and there. I just don't want you to be like, I have no idea what that means. 17, temperance is the moderation or abstinence from alcohol. Moderation or abstinence from alcohol. 18, conscription is the draft or being compelled to military service. Mandatory, required, mandatory military service. There we go. Sharecropping is farming on another's land for a portion of the crop, where you share the crops with someone.
Why do people do that sometimes? I forgot.
That happened a lot during the Reconstruction time because there were a lot of freed slaves that didn't own land. That with what is also on number 20, the tenant farming, where you pay rent, quote unquote, in either money or crops to the owner of the land that you farm. So if I own the farm, if I own the plantation, I can't farm it all by myself with my little family. So then maybe I rent it out to y'all and you farm a portion of it and pay me either crops or